When writing the ultimate evil, it's important for a writer to define evil. This takes many forms in literature, but two major forms can be simply divided into Eastern and Western perceptions of evil. Put simply, the Eastern evil is a sort of yin-yang dynamic, where forces of chaos and order battle it out. In these tales, evil is often a necessary part of the cosmic balance, a kind of counterweight to pure good. George Lucas borrows heavily from this idea when constructing the light and the dark side of the Force, two universal powers constantly at odds with one another. However, the West generally holds the idea of evil in association with sin. Sin, in this case, translating to literally without. The forces of evil in Western literature are often considered evil due to a fatal flaw in their moral fiber, or an evil act they've committed, something they've done wrong. The plot often centers around bringing the hand of justice down on evil. Villains will often fall by their own iniquity. They'll often be killed by themselves. So in Disney, a lot of times they'll end up hanging themselves or falling off a cliff. In similar fashion, many comic book villains meet demise by their own hands. In both cases, the villains are part of a cosmic struggle for either justice or order that is part of the vernacular of most audiences. People will instantly identify with the idea of justice and order being put back together by the hero. The instant sign that you've written a pure evil villain correctly is the immense sense of satisfaction the audience has with the antagonist's demise. No tears are shed for a purely evil villain, and therefore, he must be irredeemable in the eyes of your audience. Examples of such villains across various stories are Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Darkseid from the DC Universe, the White Witch from the Narnia Extended Universe, and a ton of villains from Disney. Firstborn daughter to the ruler of the Fire Nation, Azula is destined for the title of Fire Lord. Her family life was anything but standard. Azula's nuclear family lay shattered when her mother left their home unexpectedly, leaving she and her younger brother Zuko under the tutelage of their father, Lord Ozai. The man was a strict, often ruthless disciplinarian. He even brutally burned Azula's brother Zuko for speaking out of turn. She spent her formative years under the iron grip of her father, being taught that might and control stood as the greatest path to success and happiness. With this twisted logic in mind, Azula crafted herself as a force to be reckoned with. Forging her considerable talent at a young age, the fire heiress trained under firebending masters to turn herself into a deadly weapon. She even mastered the use of conjuring lightning, an extremely advanced form of firebending held only by master-level benders. But skill in combat was not enough. Azula pushed her body, but also her mind, learning battle tactics, stratagem, and planning with a specific emphasis on how to manipulate others to do her bidding. This is how she acquired her two friends, Mei and Ty Lee, masters of combat she coerced to do her will. There are three major factors that make Azula a great, purely evil villain. First, Azula's strategic nature makes her cognitively aware of all her evil choices. She's rarely reacting, but rather knows her plans and moves with many chances to change her mind or pull back. In short, she means to hurt people. There's no accident in what she's doing. Second, Azula often receives chances to repent. She's given a chance to make friends during her time on Ember Island. She's given a chance to repair her relationship with her brother, but rather attempts to kill him. Even her position of power gives her the ability to effect positive change. But she refuses, over and over again, attacking family and friends to achieve her goal, ultimately leaving her alone by her own hand. And third, Azula's goal will ultimately lead to an objectively worse outcome for the world of Avatar. The heiress's goal of seeking power causes the collapse of the Earth Kingdom and nearly kills the protagonist and her own brother. Putting this villain into your story provides your protagonist with a strong obstacle to overcome. However, the use of this type of character must be done very carefully. The pure evil villain is limited by their intentions. It's often difficult to give an evil character complex motivations without making the audience empathetic towards them. The audience must feel a source or a sense of justice when this villain falls to the hero. However, due to the fact that the villain is often not as relatable to the audience or the general characters that populate the story, it can give the writer a chance to make the evil villain outlandish or over the top. The villain can look too cool to be real because they're not really a real person to the audience. Flamboyant, badass, even ridiculous or impossible. Nothing's off limits to this nefarious character. The audience should feel the most when watching this character without feeling for the villain themselves. Well, that's my 2 cents. Please, if you have anything to add, continue the conversation below.